So, today's gonna be a little Craigslist special. Look what I found. I found some really loud dogs. Damn it. So this right here is the JCR Classic Rock Slider. And I got them for cheap. They've got some scratches on them, but they're all still in one piece. They're looking pretty good. They got the pinch seams and all that shit. So, it didn't come with all the self-tapping screws or any of the 15 or 5/16 bolts. So, I'll have to buy some new hardware. But let's hang this bad boy up and paint it, and then we'll start drilling some holes. So we're back at the paint booth again. I'm just gonna go with some of the cheaper shit paint right here. This Vero Anyway spray paint. I've used it before. It's decent, but it scratches off kind of easily. There's just some minor scratches and dings here and there. Nothing bad. As you can see, the bottom has definitely been used before. But, you know, Craigslist special, can't complain. So I'm just going to throw a little paint on there to freshen it up a bit, and then we'll bolt her down. Alright. Sheet all black now. Alright, sorry it's dark out, but here is the slider all nice and painted, looking nice and pretty. So there's some bolts I had to pick up from the store. This is what the kit, or this is what the Craigslist kit came with. I'm missing 4, currently 5. I misplaced one of the other self-tapping bolts. I'm a little upset about that, but whatever. I picked up some more. So I got 4 regular bolts. I'm going to use the self-tappers to tap the hole and then just run them in there. So you should have 16 of them. You're going to need 10 5/16 bolts, 20 washers, and 10 nuts. So that should hold everything into place. So these are for the pinch seams and all that stuff. But you're going to take your slider. I have this on a transmission jack because I can't find my normal jack, but this might do better. You're going to take a measuring tape and go from one tip all the way to the other tip and find the center. Mark the center on the slider. Then you're going to measure it from, like, if you go underneath this rail, down from this all the way to the end of that, you're going to find the middle on the truck. And then you're just going to jack it up, line the 2 lines up, and then start drilling. You're going to want to drill 1 hole on each side, put a bolt in there so you can hold it, then you drop the jack down so that you can mark your pinch seam. So, one thing at a time, I guess. I'll mark the centers and jack it up and show you what I do. Okay, so you'll take your 2 marks and line them up. You can't really see them anymore. I have it towards the back a little more. Something they tell you in the instructions is if there's any drain holes that are sitting in your frame rail that get in the way of these, they say to ignore it, but I just moved mine back about, I don't know, half an inch, maybe a little more, because there's a slot right there. So I just moved it back a little bit, and now it looks like we're going to bolt into some solid steel all the way around. Nothing on either of them sides. So if you notice, you have to jack up both of these. It's important that you have 2, because when you jack this up, the back falls. And then when you jack the back up so that it contacts up here, then the front falls. So you can jack both of them up. You basically got to jack these up until you're holding the car's weight on these jacks. And not all of it, but, you know, a little bit. So, now you get to do your holes. There's a couple ways you can do this. You could take a punch it in the middle, and then start with a small bit and work your way up. Something I found that's a little easier, take a bit that is as big as you can get to fit in that hole, and just drill for a little bit, and that'll start a little centerpiece, and you know it'll be centered because the bit fits in there. And then you start with the small bit and the big bit. So, don't cut too fast, and try to give your bits a break so that they don't overheat and don't work anymore, because otherwise this will take forever. So, I'll show you what I got. Okay, so the 3-bit sizes I'm using, you want your final size to be 5/16. because the self-tapping bolts are 3/8, and you need to leave some metal for them to cut their own threads. You can't make a 3/8 hole or they'll just fall in and out. So 5/16 for both the pinch weld seam things and for the self-tappers. So I start off with a smaller one that was like half the size of the original. That was like a 3/16 or something like that. Doesn't really matter, just something to start the hole, and then use the bigger one to open it up. Now, if you want to make this easy on yourself, take your little self-tapping bolt or whatever and just chuck it into an impact gun and run it in. You just want one on this side, and then we're going to move over to the other side and jack it up, so that way they're both, you know, where they should be. See how easy that was? Take forever with a ratchet. Alright, let's move this little setup to the other side. Okay, so take your biggest bit. I like to dip mine in a little bit of motor oil. You want a lightweight oil, and that'll just cool it down and keep the bit from eating itself. So, put it in there. A little easy, harder to do one-handed, but you want just a little divot like that, and then you can put your smaller bit in there and then open it up with the bigger one, and I just give it a little dip with each one. So switch bits. Now this part right here is going to be a little difficult, because if you notice, this is where two parts of the frame overlap each other, so it's going to be twice as thick. So you just got to go a little longer. Good bits will make this so much faster. Then you open it up with your final size. Okay, quick pro tip. Make sure you leave your bigger bit somewhere you're not going to accidentally hit it or accidentally use it. I made that one a bit too big, so fuck. Ran that one in instead. So now that they're both supported, just finish drilling out all the other holes, and then we'll lower it down so we can get the pinch seam spots. You're not going to be able to drill directly where they need to be, so you're going to drop this down and then mark where they should be, but I'll show you that when we get there. For now, it's time to drill. Okay, let's take your jack, lower it a little bit, that way you can get a marker in there. See, mine's white. So you just sit there and mark your hole and then the little dot. So do that for all 5, and then after that I'm going to unbolt mine, the whole slider, take it down, and that way I can get the drill in there a lot easier. Okay, so all the holes have been drilled out to 5/16 inch. And you can see just how close that was to that hole. So that should be just good enough for that bolt to stay in there. Might not be the most structural, but you know, they say you only need 3 per mount, really. But pinch seam is welded out, or drilled out. Something I should mention, at least the ones that I got, it does have a welded in letter F for, I'm assuming, the front, because there's an F on each one. So I guess make sure that they sit on the side that they're supposed to sit on. So now the fun part, raising it up, bolting it in. I'll have to see how I can squeeze the bolts in, whether the bolts go in through the front or however I can figure it out. But you want this bar to be on the front of this seam, okay? On other models, it might be different. Check the instructions. But for an XJ Cherokee, you want the bar in front, not in the rear. The slider is finally on and tight. So I'll give you guys some pointers. First tip, make sure you have the right bit. Otherwise, you'll have to go a size bigger on your bolt. So I'll have to get a bigger bolt for that. Let's see. You're going to want to drill these holes out one size bigger than 5/16. So 3/8 on these. That will make sure that the inaccuracies of your markings, the larger holes can compensate for that. So you can just slide the bolt in, because when they were the perfect size, I couldn't get any of these to line up. Once they were a little bigger, I had the freedom to wiggle them around a little. So you got a washer on each end and a nut. For these longer bolts, I wasn't sure what size I was going to need, so I had a 1 inch and a 1 1/4 inch. The 1 1/4 inch were easier to thread on, because at first there was a gap here until you ran them all down, but the 1 inch, you know, were just easier to get in. But there you go. Tighten everything down with an impact gun, and that'll close the gap. Same on these guys. There was a little gap, but now it's nice and tight on both ends. That one's got all 4. It might be easier, or it'll be more accurate if you drill your holes while the slider's still in place, because some of these holes were a little off. I was surprised that the bolts were actually able to go in and get a bite and actually suck the thing in. I didn't think they were going to fit at all, but they did. But if you can get a drill in there, if you get a smaller, like right angle drill, keep the slider up when you make the holes. That way all your holes line up. But there you go. The slider will be slipping along. So passenger side is done. So here's our final gaps here. That's what that side looks like. Can't really see much from above. I know it's dark, so you can't really see much anything. That's what the back looks like. And she's rock solid now. You can jump up and down on this thing just fine. She ain't going nowhere. And the cool thing is, you can jack the car up with it now. So if you got a high lift jack or something, you can actually, you know, have a place to use it. All right, on to the driver's side. Oops, I missed one. Whoops. All right, I got all the holes drilled out that I need. Got those set up. And those 2 at the top, I'm having trouble starting, so I'm going to put the slider on and then see if I can get it to start, because the bit just keeps running everywhere, and I want to make sure it's centered. So I think it's time to put this thing into place. See what we're working with here. Okay. So I got those bolts in there. Some of them were not easy. These 2 right here I was having a hell of a time with. They just weren't lining up for some reason. But I took this piece of wood and jacked up just the metal bar, and that helped enough that I could get the bolt a little bit through, and then like thread it, and then it was actually threading through. Then I could put the nuts on there. So now that that's done, and I have that pivoting where I need it to, I can bolt these down. I noticed all the holes kind of moved back, or you know, the frame, the slider moved forward a little bit, but these holes are a lot more centered than the other ones were, so these should go right in. Hooray. Okay. All the bolts have been bolted. So, it is done. You can see the seam now is really tightened up. But, cool. Nice. It's not too bad. But, oh god. Gotta watch the back of your knees when you come down on that. Neat. Very neat. So, here it is in the daytime. Figure I'll give you guys a better look at them. I think they go pretty well with the truck. They stick out a bit, but it'll keep you safe. Yeah, there's a nice look to it. So there you have it. Some JCR Rock Sliders. Classic. Just be careful when you get in and out. That's all. There you have it. Later, Gators.